let's move on to football because very interesting deal this week involving Carson Wentz. He is finally out of Philadelphia, and he is going to Indianapolis, a 2021 third-round pick, a conditional second-round pick in 2022, going back to Philadelphia. That second-round pick can become a first-round pick if Wentz plays at least 75% of the Colts' offensive snaps this season. So that has a potential to be a first and a third for Carson Wentz. Here's the really interesting part. The Eagles are taking on a nearly $34 million dead cap hit this season, 33.8 to be exact. And that is the largest dead cap hit that any team has ever taken for a player in the history of the NFL. The Colts will assume the balance of Wentz's $128 million extension, and that includes the $10 million guaranteed roster bonus that will come to him on March 19th. But quite a lot of money for the Eagles to eat this year in order to make sure Wentz isn't on their roster, and they will go in the direction of Jalen Hurts as the starter going forward. For Wentz, he reunites with Frank Reich, who was obviously his offensive coordinator for the first 2 years of his career in Philadelphia, and Reich helped them win a Super Bowl in 2017 after Wentz went down, and they moved on to Nick Foles. But Nick, we're going to go with you first on this one. How do you feel about this deal? Who is the big winner of this deal? There's a lot to break down here, but how do you see it?
I would say interesting more than anything else. And I was really surprised that the Eagles ended up trading Carson Wentz because it wasn't something that I had expected, particularly early on. When you bring in Nick Sirianni and you look at the cap ramifications for the Eagles, I would have thought that it would have taken such a significant offer for the Eagles to where they would say, okay, we are comfortable putting ourselves in cap jail and punting on this season because the offer that you have given us makes us so set up for the future that we're willing to do it. And that wasn't the case. They were evidently pushing to trade away Carson Wentz, which then begs the question, why was Doug Peterson out, or what was the situation there? Could it have been that Doug Peterson was interested in keeping Carson Wentz, and ownership and the front office didn't think that that was the right way to go, so they wanted to get rid of that quarterback and rid of the head coach that believed in him? I don't know. It's just a weird situation there. But as you look at the trade, it's going to be a first-round pick. Carson Wentz is going to be the starter for the Colts, and he's going to play, barring injury, 75% of the snaps. I think it's 70, and he makes them to the playoffs. So it's going to be a first-round pick. And the question for me is, how good is Carson Wentz right now? And he just looked like such a broken quarterback in Philadelphia. And I think it's reasonable to ask, is he an upgrade over Phillip Rivers? And I think he is. I think there are certain things that he will do that will put him in a better position in Indianapolis versus the struggle that it was in Philadelphia. But I don't know that Carson Wentz coming in, based upon what we've seen from him, not even last year, but even dating back to 2 years ago, that he is really going to do things that are going to make the Colts significantly better. I know that he was an MVP candidate in 2017, and the injuries have really derailed him. And it's something that you see with a number of quarterbacks, whether that be Sam Darnold, Jimmy Garoppolo, guys who just haven't been able to get back on track after missing significant time. It's not to say it's impossible, but it does happen. So when you look at that, he just really hasn't been the same guy since that ACL injury. I think that the mobility and the arm strength for him are a strength when compared to Phillip Rivers at his age playing for the Colts. I also think the understanding and getting the team into the right play and the veteran and the pro's pro that Phillip Rivers was is something that they will lose going to Carson Wentz. And he's in a better situation. The receivers are better. The offensive line is better. The running backs are better. The coaching apparently is better. And now it's on Carson Wentz because it's put up or shut up time for that guy playing quarterback, because there are no more excuses. If he goes here and isn't good, he's done. People are done with him. Carson Wentz, you can't play anymore because we have handed you this perfect situation that so many quarterbacks wanted to walk into, and now if you can't succeed, you're not going to be in this league much longer. I'm skeptical about it, quite frankly. I think that the NFL is such a what have you done for me lately league. And what Carson Wentz has put on tape lately has been horrendous. That's not to say he can't improve. That's not to say he can't be serviceable. But I think the idea that he is going to go from somebody who was so bad and had the yips and had forgotten to play how to play football to back to this 2017 MVP candidate just because Frank Reich is going to be in the same building with him, I don't know. I don't buy it. I think it's a good move and a risk that is worth taking for Indianapolis. But I got to tell you, I don't think that this changes much for me. Perhaps a little bit of an improvement, but I don't think that they're much of a different team than they were last year. And perhaps I'm in the minority on that take, but I'm just not too high on Carson Wentz based upon what I saw last year. I don't know how you could be.
Depends on what your opinion is of lately. And I sat down last night and then do a little blind resume here. Alex has the graphic for the YouTube and Facebook viewers, but I'll read it out for the radio audience. So player A from 2016 to 2019, this is a 16-game average. Per season, 4,087 yards, 63.8 completion percentage, 29 touchdowns, 10 picks, QBR of 62.5. Player B, same time frame, 16-game averages. 4,175 yards, 63.6 completion percentage, 32 touchdowns, 7 picks, 62.2 QBR. Just off rip here, who would you rather have, A or B?
Oof. I mean,
it's close, right?
I think it's pretty close, honestly, but I think I'd probably lean B. But I mean, it's really a toss-up at this point.
There are a lot of numbers there, so I'm not sure I got all of them, to be honest with you.
So, numbers are for losers, as Nick DeLuca says.
No, I never said that. All I'm saying is that numbers.
Oh, those words did come out of your mouth.
I understand that. And if you
that's
I'd be happy to do it. All I'm telling you is that you cannot be blinded by following a certain number and saying, okay, that's it. Yeah, that's all I was saying.
I'm not saying this is it, but it's close. You would agree that these guys, similar numbers.
Yeah, I would probably say B, but again, to me, it's difficult, especially in football, to say, okay, it's close. That I'll grant you, obviously.
So player A is Carson Wentz over that time frame. Player B is Aaron Rodgers. So I understand that in 2020, both of these guys went in radically different directions, and I get that. And I'm not going to provide that they haven't. But what I'm saying is Carson Wentz can still be a high-end quarterback in this league. Like last year was obviously terrible, and he's so lost and broken. I think he lost the locker room too, honestly. That was a big part of it. And he needs to be more coachable, but he's with the right guy in Frank Reich. I think this is a big move for the Colts, and this puts them, I think, in contention for the AFC. Everybody's still chasing Kansas City, I think, but I think this makes the Colts legit. I really like this move. And I know I kind of skewed the numbers there to fit my narrative, but I really believe that Carson Wentz could still be a high-end quarterback in this league. I think the numbers bear that out. And I think if they can fix kind of what went wrong last year, and let's remember one other thing too. In 2019, 2020, the Eagles in back-to-back years took J.J. Arcega-Whiteside over DK Metcalf and Jalen Reagor in the first round, a pick that was so bad, the Vikings war room was literally laughing because it gave them the opportunity to take Justin Jefferson. So if he gets better weapons and doesn't have to do everything in the offense, I think he'll be good to go. The Eagles last year, in the words of Kevin Clark of The Ringer, whose work I like a lot, who we actually had on the Super Bowl show last year, he would always say the Eagles lead the league in plays that obviously have no shot. And I think going from that to the Colts will be very beneficial to Carson Wentz. So I like this move a lot.
I'm not a huge fan of it. I'm not going to get too far into it, but I'm more with Nick on this one, where I'm just not sure that Carson Wentz can really play anymore, personally. And I think it sucks because you look at what Wentz was in 2017 and how good he was pre-injury, and how things have changed. And I think it's unfortunate, but at the same time, I mean, I think it's nuts that the Colts may end up giving up a first-round pick for Carson Wentz, personally, especially after what we saw from him last year. And listen, if things work out and if he plays 75% of the offensive snaps this year, that means they probably did to at least some degree. Then a first and a third is probably worth it for Carson Wentz. With that said, taking on all that money starting next year for him is pretty significant. And for that reason, I wouldn't have given up much of anything for Carson Wentz, even with what we've seen. I think from Wentz's perspective, it couldn't have been a bigger win for Carson Wentz because he gets to have an opportunity with his old offensive coordinator and Frank Reich, who he had a ton of success with, especially in 2017 pre-injury. And he's going into a situation that is one of the best situations in the NFL where he has help, he has weapons, he has the offensive line. He's got one of the best defenses in the NFL to work with as well. So I personally, if I was the Colts, I would have went with a different direction at quarterback, especially with some dominoes yet to fall in the quarterback market, one being a quarterback in their own division still in Deshaun Watson. But at the same time, I don't know how much better they would have gotten out there. So I say wait and see on Wentz, but it wouldn't have been the direction I went in if I was Indianapolis.